So that's what Pandora actually looks like. James Cameron's Avatar is one of the most visually stunning films ever made. But what does it look like without all the CGI?
The animators have taken what the actors are doing and gone even beyond that.
Neytiri lives a pretty unique lifestyle as one of the Na'vi on the planet of Pandora. One of the things that we see Neytiri partake in is drinking water from a leaf. But because director James Cameron loves to rely on technology innovation, the way that the scene was actually filmed without CGI may surprise you. Zoe Saldaña was required to work with a gray plastic contraption to model as the leaf, while holding a water bottle covered in duct tape to simulate water coming from the tape. We guess that's why they call it movie magic.
It's the most high-tech film in terms of its...
Kitty, hey. Hey. Kitty. Are you okay?
I was doing that thing again, wasn't I?
Yeah, you were.
I remember having lunch with Jim. He started to talk about this kind of forest girl who had a special gift of connection with living things. And she's going to be about 14. And you and I know how immature you are. So I think you can handle this. I said, thank you.
When you see Sigourney play a character a quarter of her actual age flawlessly, she steeped herself in the ways of teen girls.
I'm
But unconsciously, she just became younger. It was crazy to observe.
Why can't I just be like everyone else? Oh, Katie. I don't think any of us are very far away from our 14-year-old selves. It's such a strong memory, how great it was and how awful it was. And I just sort of fell in love with the character. Jim has this amazing ability to write straight into the heart of a character. Why am I different?
Performance capture gives actors the opportunity to play characters that they cannot otherwise play. And Kiri's character and Sigourney's performance are the perfect example of that, given by one of the great actresses of our time.
Where's Spider? They took him. I have had to work completely differently than I ever have before because you do have to strip away all of that Sigourney Weaver, whoever that is. And it's been an amazing experience to go back in time and be with that person every day.
She clicks into the character that she is, and it's like talking to a 14-year-old. I find it fascinating that she can channel this young girl. Whatever it is, I'm enjoying watching it.
So what does Ava's heartbeat sound like?
Mighty.
She's marvelous. To watch her, it's such a work of art. You're watching like a flower unfold, and all of a sudden you do not recognize that you are talking to a woman that is 5'10", that has walked this earth for decades and has made her mark.
There so clearly is mischievous little girl in Sigourney. She can be as imperious as you want, and she can also be a complete knucklehead.
It's a big journey for her and for the audience with her, but it's okay because you care about her. She has a luminous quality.
To see her playing a 14-year-old kid, it was magic. It's what acting is all about.
Avatar.
We had a costume designer, Deborah Scott, Academy Award winner I'd worked with since Titanic. She had to kind of have a foot in both worlds because she had to design all the costumes for the RDA, but she also had to have the whole other half of her brain to design all the costumes and jewelry and hair designs and hair decoration and everything for the Na'vi.
Costume design is one of the most important parts of expressing a character, how a person dresses, what their clothes signify in a clan, people who perform different functions, the leader, the fisherman, a child, that all these people have a different place in the clan. We researched indigenous people literally worldwide. The environment in which the clans live is extremely important to what they wear. So the Amalekian are forest people. They use things from the Pandoran forest. The Metkayina are much more adapted to water.
You are not good divers. Maybe good at swinging through trees, but...
One of the main reasons that we've made the garments to completion is the motion of the garment cannot be understood without having the whole piece. So if something's heavy or feathery or light or stringy or fringy, the way these things move in air, standing in a breeze, underwater for sure, which is a huge part of the movie. You really have to have the sample to see what happens to it.
I honestly believe that being able to create the garments in their full glory, as opposed to just a piece of 2D concept artwork, is changing the way that digital films will be made. Every fabric and every woven piece or every braid and feather, they all have their own life to them. They all move in their own way. And that's not something you can get from just looking at a piece of artwork and translating that to a screen.
We work with a digital on a constant basis. Even the smallest thing like a necklace goes for scanning, where they can actually map it. They read the texture, they read the color, and then they use all of that information in a virtual world. That believability, that reality that we're managing to bring to the movie is 100% gonna make it just more real for everyone.
Dad!
Let's get it done.
People don't realize the role that a stunt team plays on a movie. On the Avatar sequels, we rely on them to not do stunts that stand out as spectacular. We ask them to do stunts that play as part of our story's narrative.
For the James Cameron film, the action fuels the story, while the story also fuels the action, and it makes it so dynamic and it makes it so engaging that it makes you want to know what happens next.
Jim, of course, doesn't like things to just be animated. You're gonna do them for real.
The only thing we're not real is us being blue.
I've got a dry team and I've got a wet team. So some of the things that we're doing are going to be 30 feet in the air, and we'll let the actors do it full on, and we'll catch their movement, their acting and everything, and then we'll build it up, and we'll let those seasoned professionals, those parkour professionals, do that same motion.
Who do all the slinging, climbing, falling, grappling, the action through the air.
Those guys never slip.
So from fighting, falling, parkouring, we have the best in the world for each individual piece.
Flying at ground is much more difficult than it ever was before. Jim wanted people jumping on, jumping off, flying around. He even wanted that bird to fly on the stage and be able to come to a landing.
We have multiple riggers and stunt performers operating the bird, helping it turn left, right, circling, flying, diving. So we have to have our performers in sync with the creature.
The wet team, their breath holds are amazing. One of my top guys, his breath hold is like 11 minutes down there, which is ridiculous. A lot of the people that came from Cirque du Soleil, synchronized swimmers, Olympic hopefuls, so they can move like you've never seen before in that water.
Dude's been falling off horses the same way since Truman was president. When I first was approached by Garrett, and he's like, you've got to invent some stuff, and it's probably not possible, but if anybody can figure it out, James Cameron thinks I can, so let's do it.
For the water sequences in this movie, we had to figure out how to make some of these creatures fly underwater. And how are we going to do it? Are we going to use this thing called a jetivator and use underwater jets to help make it work?
If it was like a high horsepower squirt gun, we got to be the first people to actually ever take it underwater. I kept getting ripped off. And Garrett's like, dude, can you stay on that thing? I'm like, yeah, I'm trying.
And and there goes your hand, it's so fast.
Fighting underwater, what it reminds me of is if we were in the gym and we were hitting a heavy bag, and you're hitting that heavy bag as fast as you can, as many times as you can, and as hard as you can, while holding your breath, see how long you last. That's probably what your limit's gonna be underwater.
The final battle is amazing. It's epic. At one point, Quaritch and Jake have this huge knife fight while this ship is capsizing, turning, listing, and falling over on itself. We had to build this huge truss-enabled skeleton of the ship, and we had to drive it with these computerized winches so that it was able to turn at the right time, at the right speed.
And this is one of the processes that makes this film feel so real, is that it was real. Now we're underwater, we're really fighting underwater. And so that's part of the process of making it real. One of the things I love about working with Jim is that he will create that environment for you. If we need real fire, there's gonna be real fire in that stage. If we need those physical things in our hands to interact with to make it real, it will be there.
This movie is not just some amazing trip into another world. It's also still a reality-based movie that's right here in your face, and that's why I love it.
For Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldaña when they had to kiss as Jake and Neytiri while filming Avatar. While in the movie itself, with all the added CGI, the scene plays out romantically. Without all the CGI, Worthington and Saldaña had to kiss with their motion capture jumpsuits and with green dots all over their face, so that the motion capture on their characters' CGI bodies would be accurate and more real.
We created a manually operated gimbal rig that they could balance on.
One of the most exciting action scenes in all of Avatar was definitely the flying Banshee. Obviously, a lot of CGI was needed to be done to bring the Banshee to life, as there's no living, real-world counterpart to the creature. In order to capture Jake flying on the Banshee, Sam Worthington was required to fly on the back of a moving, plastic structure, where he'd be flung around with wires, all while wearing the motion capture suit. Honestly, we think we'd just prefer the ride at Disney World that seems a bit more comfortable.
Seeing them flying these things, they're working hard.
It's always intense whenever anybody in a movie yells, but when a blue-skinned alien like Neytiri yells, it's even more powerful.
You will never be one of the people!
Despite the goofy motion capture getup and the silly plastic Na'vi ears, Saldaña was still able to be quite intimidating on set. Layers of additional CGI were added in order to make Neytiri and the rest of the Na'vi look even more real in the film. You definitely wouldn't want to tick Neytiri off.
I at least have no idea that I'm wearing this. I feel like I'm blue and I'm 9 feet tall.
The big villain of Avatar was Stephen Lang's Colonel Miles Quaritch, who, unlike a lot of the other characters who required CG, is actually a human. One might assume that the Colonel's mech suit design was all CGI, but they would be wrong. The main core design of the suit was a practical effect, but it was the arm and the digital screens that were later added with additional CGI work in order to make the suit a more formidable force to the Na'vi. The final product proved to be quite the treat to the Na'vi and made Lang's Colonel an even more memorable villain. With rumors that he'll be back for the sequel, he may even bring that mech suit back.
Oh yeah, who's bad? That's right.
One of the first dangerous creatures that Jake encounters in the jungles of Pandora is the fierce Thanator. While the Thanator is quite intimidating on screen, the creature wasn't much to look at before the CGI was added. In fact, before the CGI was added, standing in for the Thanator was a red tennis ball on a long gray stick held by a crew member. In order for the actors to go on cue, the crew member holding the Thanator's stand-in would lunge at them. Life on Pandora would likely be much easier if all the Na'vi had to worry about was a tennis ball on a stick. Cameron has a knack for working with actors and actresses he's worked with before, so of course, one of the actresses he brought with him to Avatar was his alien star, Sigourney Weaver. Weaver plays Grace in the film and doesn't just play the character in human form, but also as a Na'vi. While even in her Na'vi form, Grace typically wears human clothes. Behind the scenes, Weaver had to still wear a motion capture suit to convincingly play Grace's Na'vi avatar. From Alien to Ghostbusters, Sigourney Weaver has clearly made her mark in the sci-fi genre.
We had horses galloping around this place.
It wasn't just the human actors who were behind motion capture technology on the set of Avatar, as actual horses were used under motion capture technology for the dire horses. The horses were equipped with dots on their body, much like their human co-stars, in order for them to be transformed later with visual effects. The horses were brought to the soundstage of the film, and Cameron would film the actors behind the Na'vi riding the horses with the special technology that would allow him to be their CGI counterparts as they were filming. Who knows, maybe those horses went on to take other motion capture roles as well. Despite all the extensive CGI and motion capture present throughout Avatar, that didn't mean the actors had to perform less stunts. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Whenever we saw the Na'vi climbing up the vines of the ominous floating rocks on Pandora, Cameron had the actors behind the Na'vi climb a similar structure, all in their motion capture gear. The final CGI was added later, but still, that didn't make the climb not dangerous. Though you can't really become one of the Na'vi without at least getting a little bit rugged with yourself and your environment. Motion capture wasn't always available when capturing scenes with the Na'vi, especially when they shared the screen with the human characters. When recording the scene where Jake first wakes up in his Na'vi form, Cameron filmed the actors playing the human doctors working around an empty gurney. Behind the lens of Cameron's camera, he was able to see the CGI character.
We went to Kauai, we went way up in the mountains, and we acted out the scenes.
Before the motion capture work was done for Avatar, Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldaña filmed without their suits, half naked in Hawaii. This would be done in order so James Cameron could know how to plan all their scenes that would need motion capture, such as the bow and arrow scene. The Tree of Voices is perhaps one of the most gorgeous looking set pieces in all of Avatar, but behind the scenes and without the CGI, that sacred tree wasn't much to look at. In fact, the trees were mainly just pieces of rope that were used to simulate the long leaves and branches of the trees that Neytiri would present to Jake. The final CGI would be added into the production later.
to say, these stunt guys, I mean, they gave us their all.
The Na'vi clearly have a different culture than what we're used to, and Cameron wanted to display some of the tribal customs of the main tribe in the film. The group of 4 actors may not have had the biggest roles in the film, but that didn't mean their work wasn't difficult. These actors ultimately had to memorize a tribal dance of the Na'vi in all their motion capture suits. Now that's true commitment to the craft.
If this was CG, I could have moved that in 30 seconds. So the whole time I was shooting the virtual camera, I was complaining that it wasn't live action.
While there were times on set where James Cameron and his crew had more accurate models of the Dragon assault ships, there were times where the models wouldn't be enough. In order to film the scene, Cameron had the motion capture board use a metal-like chair in the middle of the set that would be moved around by crew members. A fan was also placed in front of the actors in order to properly capture the wind blowing in their characters' faces. While the real set may not have been as exciting as actually flying on a ship as a Na'vi on Pandora, the cast and crew certainly made the most of it.
They developed the most lightweight 3D system possible, so it's very sophisticated technology.
The 3D, much like the CGI, had to be recorded in a distinct way, using 2 cameras. This scene where the Colonel is attacked on his mech by one of the Na'vi used 2 cameras to perfect the 3D and the CGI. One camera would be used for the live action elements, and the other would be used for the CG 3D elements.
I need you to put up $10 million to prove we can make this movie.
Avatar is one of the most influential films made in the last 20 years, and the CGI is an important reason why. From Cameron's innovative ways of incorporating the CGI to the commitment for authenticity by the cast and crew, Avatar's production was clearly top-notch. What was your favorite CGI element in James Cameron's Avatar?